everyone, welcome back to Honestly Bilal. I'm the host, Bilal Ahmed. I'm a fourth year medical student at the University of Toledo. Today's episode is actually really different and I'm really excited because I have two sisters here today. I have Eileen and Angie. Angie is a fourth year at UT Rio Grande in Texas, and Eileen is already a glaucoma fellow at Bascom Palmer. So we have a lot of different layers of training here today with us and two family members here together. So it's gonna be a really cool episode. Looking forward to hearing both their perspectives. So yeah, welcome.
For having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to start off because obviously you're your sisters. So where are you both from?
We're both from Austin, and I'm 5.5 years older than Angie. So she's kind of followed behind me, a few years behind, but we both went to University of Texas at Austin for undergrad and grew up in that area.
Got it. And then you both had some similarities. I know that you were a business major in college and Angie was a business minor in college. So have you both always kind of been on the same path? Have you been similar in those kind of aspects, or you have your own different distinct tastes and stuff?
Yeah, like Eileen mentioned, I kind of always wanted to copy what my big sister did. And so I think growing up, she was a huge role model for me. So, she took dance classes, I took dance classes. She played piano, I played the piano. It was very much a trend, I think, in my life. And when it came to medical school, actually, it was interesting because I started working at an optometry clinic while I was in college. And I think around that same time, Eileen was deciding to apply to ophthalmology for residency. And so it was a rare time, I think, where both of our interests aligned with each other, as opposed to like me following her. So it was a kind of a rare time, kind of a unique moment, I think, that I hold special.
Yeah, it's almost like serendipitous in a way that, you both found this vision and eyesight and medicine with eyesight being a passion for you both. So interesting how stars align sometimes, or maybe there's a genetic aspect to it, who knows? But I think it's really cool to have that sort of influence in your life too, especially when it's from a family member of some kind. I mean, for me, I have two sisters as well. So this is like a really special episode for me as well, because I have two sisters and I'm the only brother. So it's nice to have that camaraderie in a way. My sisters don't do medicine. My older sister's a brand director, and my little sister's in international politics and social policy making and stuff. So I like the idea though of having the family bond, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
We actually have a younger brother too who.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's kind of like you. He doesn't do medicine, so
okay. He's totally different from the rest of you, the two sisters.
Yeah, we're the only two in our immediate family who are in medicine, so it's nice to have that. To have that bond, I guess.
Right.
Somebody to talk to about that.
Sure. So Angie, for you, when you going through medical school, I know you're in your fourth year just as I am. Did you find yourself referring to your sister in a lot of moments where, you were like, just trying to get the handle of the system, but when it came to, maybe like step one or rotations, did you refer to your sister a lot through that process?
Absolutely. She definitely had to talk me down too a few times in those moments of stress where I just had no idea what I was doing. Because, in medical school, I think it happens with a lot of students where there's such a steep learning curve, and you kind of are in this zone where you have all these sources and you want to figure out how to best learn for yourself. And sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming, but having Eileen kind of talk through me, it's only natural for us to kind of learn in the same way. We grew up in the same family. Our dad taught us a lot of things in the same way. So it's only natural for her to give me advice for me to follow. Sure. So yeah, she was a huge help throughout my whole life, of course, especially throughout medical school where, that learning curve is so steep and you need to buckle down kind of as soon as you can.
Yeah. I think it's nice for, I was kind of a built-in mentor for Angie, but I hope that med students, everywhere look for mentors that are a few years ahead of them, because I remember so well how stressful when you're in the medical school bubble. You feel like everything is kind of make it or break it.
Right.
Every situation is high stress. Every exam is high stress. And once you get past medical school, once you get into your training and beyond, you really look back on those times and think, why was I so stressed? Everybody does fine in the end. Everybody gets to where they want to go. So just kind of having that perspective of somebody who's done it and been out of it, I think is really helpful for medical students.
Sure. And has it been nice for you as an older sister and somebody who's been mentoring your little sister along the way to have that sort of ability to give back to somebody so closely, those experiences where you're like, just don't worry. Like, I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to worry, but you know, I can assure you it's going to be fine. Didn't you
Yeah,
enjoy the
of
process of
course.
being a mentor? Did you?
Yeah, of course. I think that I, like many of us in medicine, enjoy teaching and kind of being a mentor role to
Right.
people who are going through what we've been through, and having it be my sister is even more special. It's,
Sure.
you know, adds another level of a reward to it.
Right. And so Angie, for you, you know, this is the one distinction between the two of you sisters is that you're in a position like I am, where we come from medical schools without home programs, whereas your older sister Eileen, actually went to Baylor, which is a school that does have a ophthalmology program and department. So in times like this, where you know we are trying to figure out a rhythm here for the two of us of how we're going to match this year, or you know, go through these obstacles like virtual interviewing and the whole situation that we're all adjusting to with COVID-19. Have you found that with your older sister going through a different experience that you've relied on, you know, information from other sources, or have you been more open to finding mentors in other places?
Yeah, definitely. She, you know, it's actually something that she had to motivate me to do, because I think for so long I'd been relying on her for advice, just because our situations up until this point had been so similar.
Right.
So coming to, I guess, a school without a home program in ophthalmology really had to, I really had to be motivated and prioritize my learning essentially. And she did help with, you know, motivating me with finding those resources for myself. And actually, it kind of highlights how small this community of ophthalmology is. I found a mentor who also went to Baylor and actually helped. She knew Eileen through medical school.
Right. Right.
So it's such a weird, you know, it was an instance where I was like, wow, this field is really small. Like this community is so small.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be so. Um, well, I guess you could say like the connection, you can make connections almost anywhere just
Right.
given how small the field is,
Sure. Sure.
and given the right opportunities. So I think that in itself was a way that she kind of helped in unknowingly, because, you know, it kind of helped build that recognition. But it was also me having to find these other references and points of mentorship where they could also acknowledge the situation I was in and help from there.
Right, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I can totally understand that. I think it's one thing to have somebody who you can refer to as somebody who's shown you the way or who has been a mentor in some way or another for a while, but it's also refreshing to meet people who, you know, who are out of goodwill are willing to mentor you, or who just really don't have an association with you, but they kind of remember what it's like to be in this position and they want to give back. So, you know, people out there who do that, you know, you're special people, and we hope to give it back to someday. I can assure you, and I know Angie would do the same, agrees with me on that point.
Absolutely. It's been so nice too. I have yet to meet an ophthalmologist who doesn't want to help. So
Right.
it's such a good feeling. It's such a reassuring feeling too, especially just considering the current climate right now.
Right. Absolutely. And for me, I mean, I agree, because I think the one thing that you mentioned, which I really do, I've actually grown to appreciate, which I didn't really think that is something to appreciate, at least in the beginning, maybe because I'm a naive med student, but I really do think that the small community of ophthalmologists who, because it's considered a small community of everybody kind of knows everybody, I think there's a power to that shows that, you know, your voice can be heard pretty quickly if you just try, you know, just try to amplify it, you know, people will listen. And but you know, within respectful boundaries, you know, you never want to overstep, but people, you know, respect opinions. And I think there's a strength to having a small community sometimes too. There's maybe size and numbers, but there's size and quality of people too. So
Yeah, definitely.
sure. So Eileen, I wanted to ask you, you know, you're my first guest who's been on the show who's actually gone through residency training. I think it'd be really beneficial if you could just share with us what was something that, you know, looking back when you reflect in life, if you were in our position now as rising M4s and people who are going to be applying for ophthalmology this fall, going into, you know, this process with applications, or going into maybe intern year, or even the first ophthalmology year of residency for anybody who's out there who's just finishing their first intern year, what can you talk about those learning curves, or something you would have done differently, or any advice you may have?
So I guess one piece of advice that I always give is when you're choosing your program, when you're choosing your rank list, something to consider is the people that are there at that program, which I think you guys are in a kind of a unique, you'll have a unique advantage this year because you'll have this ability to do virtual interviews.
Right.
I think at almost all programs. And so you'll have the ability to really see a large number of programs, whereas in the past we had to be kind of picky and choosy with which interviews we went on because of the travel and all of that. Sure. You guys really get to have a breadth of interviews. And, you know, sometimes there's been some discussion about the downside of virtual interviews being that you don't get to see maybe the location of the program or the city that the program's in and all of that. But at the end of the day, when I look back, I don't think that the city or location really made that much difference in my happiness during residency. What really mattered the most was the people that were in my program. Sure. And so really pay attention to how happy the residents are, if they're people that you feel like you could fit in with, because that, at the end of the day, you spend so much time with those people, that makes such a huge difference. And that's the piece of advice that I give to every interviewee that's come through during residency interviews the past few years. Sure. Looking back on what the learning curve is like, intern year really is just a year to try to learn as much of whichever, you know, if you do medicine, surgery, pediatrics, whatever it is, just soak that all up, because really after intern year, you're not going to get any time to read that material or really learn that material that well. So intern year, I think, is a good year to just soak everything in. But going into ophthalmology residency, ophthalmology is one of those fields where it's a steep learning curve throughout. The first year of residency, you're learning all about the eye. The second year, you start to learn about surgery and taking call on your own. And the third year, it's the big surgical year where you really are kind of starting to master surgery and do surgeries kind of on your own. So each year comes with a steep learning curve, which was something that was both terrifying, but also, you know, enjoyable about ophthalmology. There was never a time where I felt completely comfortable. There still isn't, you know, at the end of the day. And it's a field where there's always a learning curve. And so really, I think as with anything, you'll get out of it what you put into it. So my advice is just to kind of spend those 3 years of ophthalmology residency putting your 100% effort in, you know, taking the time to read as much as you can, even though that it's very difficult to do a lot of times for busy residents, you know, taking time to stay late in the operating room, taking time to try to see every patient that you possibly can, because really 3 years is kind of short. And so looking back, I wish, you know, the one piece of advice is just spending every day giving 100%.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I know you're going to glaucoma. Do you try to convince Angie like glaucoma is already the coolest, or are you letting her decide right now?
No, you know, at no point have I ever tried to convince Angie to do anything. She's
okay, that's polite of you. Okay,
totally chooses things on her own. I never tried to tell her to, you know, I never try to convince her to go into medicine or any of that. So
that's great. Yeah.
I always keep an open mind, I think, for all of it.
Sure. So you're not biased. You're not as biased as maybe you wanted to be, maybe. So you let her become her own person, which is really cool.
Definitely.
She's quiet right now. I don't know how she feels about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she feels like I am convincing her.
We don't know. This is a one-sided story. I haven't heard any side yet, but.
I mean, I just feel like she's been such, you know, like I said earlier, an important role model for me, someone I aspire. It's I think an honor to have a female with all these aspirations and seeing them through in your life. And so I think I value like all the accomplishments she's made, and
absolutely
it's just it's inspiring, and it's always been that simple in my life.
That's great. And I think it's just a cool story. I mean, in general, just like I'm honored to be in a situation like this where I'm interviewing both of you, because it's rare, but I hope that someday you guys, if you ever want the recording or if you ever watch it again, hopefully you enjoy it and you do want to watch it again. But I hope that, you know,
yeah, well, I think that it is a testament to ophthalmology. I know Angie and I are somewhat unique, but when you get into the field, you'll see that there's father-daughter, father-son, mother-son, mother-daughter pairs of ophthalmologists and other siblings who go into ophthalmology, because it's such a good field. It's such a cool field.
Yeah.
I think that it really, you know, when you see someone close to you who you trust, who's happy doing something, it makes you want to do it too. And it's just kind of a testament to the field. It's a good field to be in, and you guys are both making good choices.
Hopefully, yeah. So I mean, it's exciting to see. You know, someday you guys might be calling each other for consults or something like that, which would be pretty interesting. Calling
Yeah.
each other by last name, by Dr. Choudhury, so or by Dr. Bowden as well. So that's cool. I really like that dynamic that you guys have, and it seems like it's a genuine. You know, you trust each other's sisters, and you have this sort of respect for each other in terms of recognizing each other's goals and recognizing the personalities that you both have, which are similar and also different in some ways, but you ultimately want the best for each other and know that you want each other to reach the full potential, which is the best kind of collaboration I think you can ever have, especially when it's through blood and family. So I think it's really unique. So I wanted to ask also, you know, besides the learning curves of ophthalmology that you talked about, Eileen, Angie, for you, you know, being from in Austin, Texas, and have you found that locally, at least in Texas, there's other places that have been more kind to students in your situation without home programs?
Yeah, so actually it's kind of interesting. The location of our medical school is actually in Edinburgh, Texas, which is a border town. It's
Okay.
on the US Mexico border. And I think just being in this location, you see a lot of I say cool, but unique pathologies and really rare situations that you wouldn't normally experience elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some other programs like at San Antonio, Houston, Texas A&M, they recognize that, and they have initiatives here where they, you know, have students come here.
Oh, that's really cool. Sure.
Yeah, so it's not completely unknown here, I guess, that they don't know what the situation here is.
Right. Okay.
And that being said, they also recognize the pathologies that are down here and try to take advantage of, you know, learning from them and just, you know, getting more research from them so that we can address the issues. So when I reach out to, for example, I reached out to a physician in San Antonio who he was at the time, you know, I think I've been emailing him since January, just trying to find like a research opportunity, trying to collaborate on something. And
sure.
up until he was always like, you know, are you in the area? If not, we kind of don't really have anything for you now. And it wasn't until COVID happened where, you know, I was like, well, everything's remotely now. Let me try. Let me see. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Have anything for me now? And he did.
Yeah.
And I think just kind of, you know, that the pandemic kind of helped me in a way, paradoxically, in that situation. But it still, you know, it still relates to adversities that we see in the Valley. And it's still a topic that I think I could have written about from anywhere necessarily here, but because I am here, it helps with my experience in contributing to the research and papers.
Sure. And I think it's really important to always look at the community around you, and it's cool that you took the initiative to persist and try to find an opportunity to still examine the people around you in your community. And even if it took emailing again and being persistent, you know, I think it says a lot about perseverance, and that, you know, it's great that person gave you the opportunity because you took it and you ran with it. So that says a lot. So I think there's a hunger there, which is really good to have.
Yeah, I think you'll find that with a lot of the applicants this season. You know, I think we have all had to be kind of hungry for an opportunity to show our interest and demonstrate our interest in the field we want to go into. So I think that's definitely a trait that will be highlighted very heavily this upcoming application cycle.
Sure. So Eileen, you did your training in New York, and can you talk about what it was like from going from Texas to New York and that sort of transition from one state to another?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a big change for sure. You know, I was in Manhattan, so that coming from Texas, it was an exciting change, but I loved it. In both places, I came from Houston and then went to New York City. In both places, the patient population was diverse and able to really kind of see a wide variety of types of patients, types of pathologies. So in that way, it was very similar. But really, like, living in the big city was kind of a big adjustment. But by the end, I loved it. I definitely recommend living in New York to anybody for a few years. Residency is the perfect time to do it because.
You think so? Okay, interesting.
I think so. Just because it's, you know, it's going to be for a finite amount of time, and residency is any type of residency, you're so busy, and the fact that everybody at the end of the day could just walk out together and walk home together and go, walk over to a restaurant and all have dinner together. That was really nice.
Sure. I'm sure the community like that is like unmatched because it's also like the jungle, the city of the jungle. I've never been to New York City. I've always wanted to, but I've always heard that, it's just like there's no place like it. So
yeah.
Angie, did you ever visit? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No.
Angie, I was going to ask you, did you ever visit Eileen while she was in New York City during med school, or did you enjoy New York City at all?
So I have been to New York City for fun before, definitely, and I highly recommend going there if you haven't visited yet.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll take notes. Yeah.
But as far as
a couple times,
yeah,
you visited me.
I visited you. I never got a chance to really see you in residency though, which is kind of a regret I've always had, just seeing, because I feel like that exposure, because as a pre-med student, would have helped too with understanding kind of the process and what you go through as a resident. But it was cool, just hearing your stories, and even then, they were always so interesting and so invigorating too. It was kind of a way to live vicariously through you.
So I gotta ask. I mean, it's really rare for me to have sisters on the show, like I said. So, and I don't know if I'll ever have this opportunity again. But growing up, who was a troublemaker? You got to spill the secrets. Who's the one who? I know you have a great relationship, and I know that you love each other. But who? When you did have some tiffs here and there, who's pulling the strings?
I think that I was always a little bit of the mom figure because like I was almost 6 years older than Angie and 7 years older than our brother. So I was probably the one who was more, I would say if someone was causing trouble, it would probably be Angie.
Oh, okay. Angie's the troublemaker here. It's a middle child thing. That's what it is. We have that going for us. Yeah. We just
stereotypes going. Eileen was the first child, perfect older sibling fawned over.
Sure.
I was a middle child, so I probably was trying to get some attention from
totally fine. Hey, we were all there at one point. So Eileen, let me ask you this. Has Angie ever influenced you in a way that made you, pursue something that you maybe wouldn't have before? Has Angie been an influence in your life?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Angie. So I'm definitely like she said, I'm the oldest sibling, so I'm kind of more of a people pleaser. And Angie is definitely stronger in the way where she doesn't really care what people think about her. She's very independent. She does whatever she feels is best for her. And that's been something that as we've gotten older, I've learned from her in that way. Like there are times where I'll think, okay, what would Angie do in this situation? And she would do what she feels is best for her. And that's been something that, in not so much maybe in my work life, but in personal life, something that I've taken from her, and it's been something that I've learned and grown from for sure.
Sure. So Angie's known for her grit, it seems like.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Great. And I think that'll serve her well, hopefully, in her career and other in life as well. So that's cool, Angie. I need to take some notes for you too. I'm trying to have as much grit as possible, and I can always use more. I think you can never run out of grit, right?
No, it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about this? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to compliment you, give you credit for this initiative that you've taken. These webinar or these interview series that you've been doing are a great demonstration to showcase some of our experiences and how we've grown throughout the whole process.
Sure. Yeah. And the point is that, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. But at the end of the day, I think the one thing I've learned is that you can have a voice. And I think we echoed that yesterday with Dr. Steinman too, is that you can have a voice. No matter who you are, no matter what stage you're at, no matter what program or wherever school you're at, you can always do something, I think. And at the end of the day, I know for me, and it sounds like for you too, it's important for me to be at a place where I have a team. I'm a team-based person. I played tennis in college and high school, and although it's an individual sport, I always needed the support of people around me too. And it sounds like for you, family has been a support structure for you, and you're a team player. And I think, people like us who understand what it's like to not have those resources, but know how to be team players. Things like this are really beneficial because you make friends through this process, future colleagues possibly too. So I think it never hurts to get to know more people, I don't think.
Absolutely, especially in ophthalmology.
Sure, absolutely.
So, you'll see everybody again.
Yeah, and that's a fun thing. So I'm really hoping, what's crazy is that I've never met anyone I've interviewed yet in person, not a single person I've ever met. And I think it'll be really interesting to hopefully someday recognize somebody at a conference across the hall and say what's up. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Once this pandemic is over, it'll happen.
Yeah, absolutely, someday. So So my other question is about home life here is, okay, we understand the tension was caused by Angie. So Angie's in the blame for all that. But who was the favorite? I don't know who was the favorite child, and you gotta give the credit where it's due.
I'm just gonna say it was our little brother, just
Yeah.
Really? Oh man,
Definitely
the
baby of the
wild
family.
card.
I know, he was the baby.
We're the two doctors, yet somehow he's the favorite.
Oh, the dark horse. He waited his turn. He's like, all right, you can do whatever you want. They're not gonna forget about me.
Exactly. He's the baby of the family, and he's the favorite for sure. He can do no wrong.
That's fair. Maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but we can do a lot of wrong. I can speak for myself that in my house, I do the most wrong. So I'm glad that it seems like you guys have a great family life. And then again, it's been a pleasure having you both on. You're both welcome to come back anytime. Angie, for you, I know you're on Twitter, so do you mind throwing out your Twitter handle for anyone who wants to follow you and get any networking opportunities?
Absolutely. You can follow me at Angie _Choudhury, CHOUDHURY. It's actually kind of funny. I've had a Twitter since I think high school, but it wasn't until this whole thing started happening that I've gone back to it and tried to rebuild my on social media.
Sure. Rebrand.
Getting back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Rebranding. So yeah, it's taking me some time, but you can follow me on Twitter, and we can always meet there.
Sure, absolutely. So hopefully we get Angie some more followers out there who are in ophthalmology or interested in ophthalmology, because she has a great story. Really looking forward to seeing what you do, Angie, this year. Keep in touch with me, please. As always, this is a friendly process and I want to keep it that way. So, if you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome to. And Eileen, thank you so much for joining. I love that there was a new perspective from someone who's more advanced in training. And I know your team glaucoma, but anytime you want to talk about glaucoma, you're more than welcome to come back.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. So again, this is episode number 6 with the sisters today. I'm going to put this one up later. And for anybody who's out there who's watching these, if you're enjoying this content, if you're subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or on YouTube, do me a favor and just share it with somebody who you think might enjoy it or might get something from it. Again, it's just I'm just a guy with a computer, so I think anyone can come on who would like to, and looking forward to having more conversations like this. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.